Seeds of doubt. The rain drummed against the veterinary clinic's windows as Maya Chun finished her last appointment of the day. Mrs. Patterson's tabby had recovered beautifully from surgery, and seeing the relief in the elderly woman's eyes reminded Maya why she'd chosen this profession. Healing came in many forms, and sometimes the smallest gestures made the biggest difference. She locked up the clinic and drove through the quiet streets of Millbrook, eager to get home to Marcus. They'd been together for 18 months now, and she still felt that flutter of excitement when she thought about seeing him. Tonight, she'd picked up ingredients for his favorite Thai curry, a small surprise to celebrate his promotion at the engineering firm. The duplex they shared sat on a tree-lined street, its blue shutters and white picket fence giving it a storybook charm. Maya had fallen in love with the place almost as much as she had with Marcus. The previous owner had been an avid gardener, and the front yard still bloomed with roses and lavender that perfumed the evening air. Maya parked in the driveway, surprised to see Marcus's truck already there. Usually he worked late on Thursdays, staying behind to review blueprints and project timelines. She grabbed the grocery bags and her medical bag, juggling her keys as she approached the front door. The house was dark, except for a faint glow coming from the kitchen. "Marcus?" she called out, setting down her bags on the entryway table. No response. The silence felt different, somehow not empty, but expectant, as if the house itself was holding its breath. She moved through the living room, noting that Marcus's work boots weren't by the door where he usually kicked them off. His jacket wasn't on the couch either, but his truck was definitely outside, and she'd seen the kitchen light. Maya walked toward the back of the house, past their bedroom and the small office where Marcus sometimes worked on freelance projects. The back door stood slightly ajar, cool, air drifting through the gap. Through the glass, she could see a flashlight beam moving in the darkness beyond their small patio. Curious, she stepped outside. The wooden deck was damp from the earlier rain, and she moved carefully to avoid slipping. The flashlight beam was coming from behind the garage, in an area of their property she rarely visited. It was overgrown with weeds and brambles, bordered by a tall privacy fence that separated their yard from the vacant lot next door. "Marcus?" she called softly, not wanting to startle him. The flashlight beam froze, then quickly switched off. She heard the sound of footsteps, deliberate and careful, moving away from her. Maya's heart began to race. Why would Marcus hide from her? And what was he doing out there in the dark, in a part of their yard that was essentially unused? She grabbed her phone and turned on its flashlight, following the path where she'd seen the beam. Behind the garage, she discovered something that made her breath catch. Someone had been working back here, recently and extensively. The weeds had been cleared away, and the soil had been turned and amended. Garden beds had been carefully constructed with what looked like expensive cedar boards. Even in the darkness, she could see the neat rows in the dark earth, rich and well prepared. Maya knelt down and touched the soil. It was moist and had the earthy smell of fresh compost. This wasn't something that had been done hastily or carelessly. This was the work of someone who knew what they were doing, someone who had invested time, money, and considerable effort. But why the secrecy? Why had Marcus never mentioned this project to her? They shared everything, their dreams, their worries, their daily frustrations and small victories. The idea that he was working on something this significant without telling her felt like a crack in the foundation of their relationship. She stood up, brushing dirt from her knees, and looked around more carefully. Near the fence, she spotted a small shed she'd never noticed before, painted to blend in with the garage. Her chest tightened, with a mixture of hurt and confusion. What else didn't she know about the man she thought she loved completely? Thorns and whispers the next morning. Maya woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes, but the domestic comfort felt hollow. Marcus stood at the stove, his dark hair still messy from sleep, humming softly as he flipped a pancake with practiced ease. Any other day, she would have wrapped her arms around his waist and stolen a bite of batter from the bowl. Instead, she poured herself coffee and studied his face, searching for signs of deception she'd somehow missed. "You were up late last night," she said carefully. Marcus glanced over his shoulder, his brown eyes warm but unreadable. "Couldn't sleep. Went for a walk around the neighborhood." The lie came so easily that Maya wondered how many others she'd accepted without question. "The rain stopped early," she observed, testing him. "Yeah, it was nice to get some fresh air." He plated the pancakes and set them in front of her with a kiss on her forehead. "Eat up. I know you skipped lunch yesterday." His attentiveness, usually so touching, now felt calculated. Maya forced herself to eat, tasting nothing. After Marcus left for work, she called her clinic and rescheduled her morning appointments, claiming a family emergency. She needed answers. The hardware store on Main Street had been serving Millbrook for 3 generations. If someone was buying gardening supplies in bulk, old Pete Hendricks would remember. Maya found him restocking fertilizer in the garden center, his weathered hands moving with the efficiency of decades. "Maya, how's that little beagle of yours doing?" Pete's face creased into a genuine smile. "Buster's doing great, thanks." Maya hesitated, then plunged ahead. "Pete, I was wondering, has Marcus been in here lately?" "My boyfriend, Marcus Rivera? He's been talking about starting a garden project." Pete's expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. "Well, now, I can't really discuss what other customers buy. Privacy and all that. It's just that he's been so secretive about it, and I wanted to help." Maya hated the pleading note in her voice. Pete glanced around, then leaned closer. "Look, honey, I like you. But that fellow of yours, he's been coming in here every week for the past 2 months, spending serious money. Premium soil amendments, specialized fertilizers, irrigation supplies. The kind of setup that costs thousands, not hundreds." Maya's stomach dropped. Where was Marcus getting that kind of money? His promotion was recent, and they'd been saving for a vacation to visit her parents in California. Did he say what he was growing? Never specified. But the supplies he's buying. Pete scratched his gray beard thoughtfully. "That's the kind of setup you use for plants that need very specific conditions. Delicate things that require careful tending." The word delicate sent Maya's imagination spinning in dangerous directions. She thanked Pete and left, her mind racing through possibilities she didn't want to consider. That evening, Marcus was unusually attentive. He brought her wine while she graded continuing education materials, massaged her shoulders when she complained about a difficult surgery, and suggested they watch her favorite movie. But his phone kept buzzing with text messages, and each time he'd glance at it with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Popular tonight," Maya commented after the 5th notification. "Just work stuff. You know how Peterson gets when he's stressing about deadlines." Marcus silenced his phone and turned back to the movie, but Maya noticed he kept it face down on his lap. Around 11, Marcus excused himself to use the bathroom. Maya heard the water running, then the soft creak of the back door. Her heart hammered as she crept to the kitchen window. In the moonlight, she could see Marcus's silhouette moving toward the hidden garden, a small bag in his hand. She grabbed her jacket and slipped out the front door, circling around to approach from the side yard. This time, she was determined to see what he was really doing back there. The sight that greeted her was even more mysterious than before. Marcus had strung up battery-powered LED lights that cast a soft glow over the garden beds. Plants were growing there. Now she could see the neat green rows even from her hiding spot behind the neighbor's fence. But these weren't vegetables or flowers. The plants were unfamiliar, with distinctive leaf patterns that seemed almost medicinal. Marcus moved between the rows with practiced precision, checking each plant, adjusting small irrigation lines, making notes in a notebook by flashlight. His movements were tender, careful, like he was tending to something precious and fragile. Maya's phone buzzed with a text. From Marcus. In the shower, love you. Another lie, delivered while she watched him. 50 feet away. The betrayal cut deeper than she'd expected. Whatever Marcus was hiding, it was bigger than a secret garden. And as she watched him lovingly tend to his mysterious plants in the middle of the night, Maya began to wonder if the man she'd fallen in love with was someone she'd never really known at all. The secret bloom Maya spent the weekend in a haze of suspicion and hurt. She found herself studying Marcus when he wasn't looking, cataloging every phone call, every unexplained absence, every small deception. By Sunday evening, she couldn't take it anymore. I'm going to grab some ice cream from the corner store, she announced after dinner, though her real plan was to circle back and finally confront whatever was happening in that garden. Want me to come with you? Marcus offered, but his phone was buzzing again, and she could see the conflict in his eyes. No, I'll be quick. Maya grabbed her keys and left, but instead of driving to the store, she parked 3 blocks away and walked back through the alley behind their house. The familiar glow of LED lights beckoned from behind the garage. This time, Maya was close enough to hear voices Marcus's familiar baritone and another voice, higher and frailer. Her blood ran cold. Was this the affair she'd been dreading? Creeping closer, she peered through a gap in the fence slats. What? She saw stopped her breath entirely. Marcus knelt beside an elderly Latina woman who sat on a folding chair among the garden rows. She was thin, almost gaunt, with a colorful headscarf covering what appeared to be a bald head. Her hands, marked with age spots and 4 bruises, gently touched the leaves of the plants Maya had seen him tending so carefully. The calendula is coming along beautifully, Elena, Marcus was saying softly. And look at the echinacea, it's already starting to flower. Elena smiled, her face transformed despite obvious exhaustion. Mio, you are an angel. These herbs, they cost so much at the health food store. My granddaughter, she tries to help, but with 3 children and her husband laid off. Don't worry about any of that, Marcus said firmly. This garden is for you, whatever you need. Maya watched as Marcus carefully harvested leaves and flowers, placing them in small cloth bags he pulled from a wooden crate. Elena reached into her purse with shaking hands, but Marcus gently pushed her money away. Elena, we've talked about this. You're not paying for anything, but the supplies, the time you spend, are my choice to give. Marcus's voice was tender but resolute. When my abuela was sick, a neighbor did the same for us. It's what people do for each other. Elena's eyes filled with tears. The doctors, they say the chemotherapy is working, but the side effects, these herbs, they help with the nausea, the pain. My granddaughter researched them all, made sure they won't interfere with my treatment. Maya felt her own eyes burn. She watched Marcus help Elena to her feet, noting how carefully he supported her, how naturally he adjusted his pace to match her careful steps. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't drug dealing or any of the dark scenarios her imagination had conjured. This was Marcus being impossibly, secretly kind. Same time next week? Elena asked as Marcus walked her toward the front of the property. Of course. And if you need anything before then, you call me, day or night. Maya hurried back to her car, her mind reeling. By the time she returned home, with the ice cream she'd actually had to go buy, Marcus was on the couch watching TV, acting as if he'd been there all evening. Good timing, he said, pausing the show. I was just thinking about dessert. Maya sat beside him, studying his face. He looked the same as always, kind eyes, easy smile, the small scar on his chin from a childhood accident. But now she saw something else, the weight of secrets, the careful way he chose his words. "Marcus," she said slowly, "is there anything you want to tell me?" Something flickered across his expression, hope, maybe, or fear. For a moment, Maya thought he might finally tell her the truth. But then his phone buzzed again, and she saw him glance at it reflexively. "Tell you about what?" he asked, but his voice was too casual. The moment passed. Maya felt a surge of frustration mixed with heartbreak. She'd seen his kindness with her own eyes, witnessed the gentle way he cared for Elena. But the lies between them felt like a wall she couldn't scale. "Never mind," she said, accepting the bowl of ice cream he offered. But as they sat together in false normalcy, Maya made a decision. Tomorrow, she would find Elena. She would learn the whole truth, not from stolen glimpses and eavesdropping, but from honest conversation. Because watching Marcus tend his secret garden had shown her something important. The man she loved was capable of extraordinary compassion. She just needed to understand why he felt he had to hide it from her. God, the question that kept her awake. That night wasn't whether Marcus was a good man. She'd seen the evidence with her own eyes. The question was why someone so fundamentally decent felt he couldn't share his goodness with the woman he claimed to love. And more troubling still, what did his secrecy say about her, about the relationship they'd built, about the trust she thought existed between them? Weathering the storm, Maya found Elena Vasquez the next morning at Millbrook Community Health Center, where a quick call to the oncology department revealed she had a standing Monday appointment. Maya waited in the parking lot, her heart hammering. As she rehearsed what she would say, Elena emerged from the building looking even frailer in daylight. But her granddaughter, a young woman about Maya's age with tired eyes, and a toddler on her hip, walked beside her with protective devotion. "Mrs. Vasquez?" Maya approached carefully. "I'm Maya Chun. I think you know my boyfriend, Marcus Rivera." Elena's face lit up with recognition and warmth. "Maya! Marcus talks about you all the time. You're the veterinarian who saves all the animals, yes?" The simple joy in Alana's voice made Maya's chest tight. "Could we talk? Maybe get some coffee?" An hour later, sitting in a quiet corner of Rosie's diner, while Elena's granddaughter Sophia took the baby to the park, Maya finally understood the full scope of Marcus's secret. Elena had been battling ovarian cancer for 8 months. Her insurance covered the chemotherapy of little else, and the complementary herbs that helped manage her symptoms cost more than her fixed income could handle. Marcus, he appeared like a guardian angel, Elena said, sipping chamomile tea that Marcus had grown and dried himself. "I was crying in the community garden one day, you know. The plot I'd rented for 20 years. I couldn't tend it anymore. Too weak. And this young man, he sees me and asks if I'm okay." Maya learned that Marcus had not only taken over Elena's community garden plot, but had researched which herbs might help with her specific symptoms, consulted with Elena's oncologist to ensure nothing would interfere with her treatment, and spent his promotion bonus creating the elaborate setup behind their garage. But why didn't he tell me? Maya asked, more to herself than to Elena. Elena's weathered hand covered hers. "Mia, sometimes good people carry shame that doesn't belong to them. Marcus, he told me about his grandmother, how she died alone because the family couldn't afford proper care. He said he promised himself he'd never let that happen to someone else if he could help it. That still doesn't explain the secrecy. He's afraid," Elena said simply. "Afraid you'll think he's foolish for spending money on an old woman he barely knows. Afraid you'll think he should focus on your future together instead of helping strangers. Men, they get strange ideas about what makes them worthy of love." Maya drove home with Alana's words echoing in her mind. When she walked into the house, Marcus was in the kitchen making lunch, humming the same tune he'd been humming all weekend. The normalcy of it, the pretense, suddenly felt unbearable. "I know about Elena," she said without preamble. Marcus went very still, a sandwich half assembled in his hands. When he turned to face her, his expression was carefully blank the look he got when he was preparing for bad news. "Maya, I can explain, can you?" The words came out sharper than she'd intended. "Because I've been watching you lie to me for weeks, Marcus. Not just omitting things, actively lying. You told me you went for a walk in the rain. You texted me that you were in the shower while I watched you working in the garden." Marcus's face crumpled. "I was going to tell you." "When? After how many more lies?" Maya felt tears threatening. "I thought we were building something real together. I thought we trusted each other." "We do. I do trust you." Marcus stepped toward her and stopped when she took a step back. "Maya, what I'm doing for Elena, it's not about you. It's about me, about something I need to do." "But it became about us the moment you decided to hide it from me." Maya's voice broke. "Do you know what I thought? I thought you were having an affair. I thought you were dealing drugs. I followed you, Marcus. I spied on you because I couldn't trust my own boyfriend to tell me the truth about where he was spending his evenings." The color drained from Marcus's face. "God, Maya, I never meant I didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think about how your secrecy would affect me, affect us." Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What you're doing for Elena is beautiful. It's one of the most compassionate things I've ever seen. But the way you hid it from me makes me feel like you don't see me as a partner. Like you don't think I'm capable of supporting you in something that matters to you." Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "My dad used to say that real men solve problems quietly, without asking for help or recognition. That needing people, even the people you love, was weakness. Your father was wrong." Maya sat across from him, her anger giving way to sadness. "Partnership isn't about solving everything alone. It's about letting someone choose to face things with you. I was afraid you'd think I was naive, throwing money at problems that weren't mine to solve. And I was afraid you'd stopped loving me enough to share your life with me." Maya reached across the table, not quite touching his hand. "We were both afraid of the wrong things." They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of unspoken truths heavy between them. Finally, Marcus looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but determined. "I want to show you something," he said. "The real garden. Not just glimpses through fences, but everything. Will you let me?" Maya studied his face, seeing vulnerability there she'd never noticed before. "Yes," she said quietly, "but no more secrets, Marcus. If we're going to fix this, I need to know that you'll trust me with all of it. The good intentions and the messy execution, the fears and the hopes. All of it?" Marcus nodded, and for the first time in weeks, Maya saw a glimpse of the man she'd fallen in love with, not perfect, but willing to try to be honest. New growth 3 months later, Maya knelt beside Marcus in what they now called Elena's garden, her hands deep in rich soil as she transplanted seedlings of lemon balm. The October air was crisp, and Elena sat bundled in a warm coat, directing their efforts with the authority of someone who'd been gardening for 70 years. "The chamomile needs more space, Mios," Elena called out, her voice stronger now that the worst of her treatments were behind her. "And Maya, your rows are getting crooked again." Maya laughed, wiping dirt on her jeans. "I'm better with animals than plants, apparently." "You're learning," Marcus said, bumping her shoulder affectionately. "Remember the first time you tried to harvest the calendula? You picked the entire plant. That was one time." Maya protested, but she was smiling. The garden had become a weekend ritual for all of them. Elena's granddaughter Sophia often brought the children, who loved hunting for ladybugs among the herb rows. What had started as Marcus's secret project had grown into something bigger, a small community of care that included Dr. Martinez from the health center, who consulted on which herbs were safest, and Mrs. Chun from the neighboring duplex, who contributed compost from her kitchen scraps. "I have news," Elena announced as they finished planting. "The oncologist says I'm in remission." Maya and Marcus exchanged a glance full of shared joy. The past few months hadn't been easy, learning to trust again, figuring out how to communicate about the difficult things, navigating the vulnerability that came with true partnership. But moments like this reminded Maya why the work had been worth it. "That calls for celebration," Marcus said. "Dinner at Rosie's? My treat. Only if you promise not to lecture the waitress about the benefits of adding fresh herbs to everything," Elena teased. As they cleaned up their tools, Maya reflected on how much had changed. Marcus still tended the garden with the same careful devotion, but now she understood the deeper currents behind his actions, his need to nurture, his fear of being seen. As weak, his profound capacity for love that extended beyond their relationship, to embrace anyone who needed care. More importantly, she'd learned to recognize her own patterns. The way she assumed the worst when faced with uncertainty. How she'd mistaken his desire to protect her from worry for a lack of trust in her strength. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Marcus asked as they walked back toward the house, Elena having been picked up by Sophia. "Just thinking about growth," Maya said, gesturing toward the garden. "How some things need darkness before they can bloom." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. "Are we talking about plants or us? Both, maybe." Maya took his dirt-stained hand in hers. "I love this, you know. Not just the garden, but all of it. The way you see people who need help. The way you commit completely to the things that matter to you. I love that I get to be part of it now. Even when I'm stubborn and secretive and think I have to save the world by myself. Especially then." Maya stood on her toes to kiss him. "Because now I know that when you disappear into the backyard, you're not running away from us. You're making space for more love to grow." As they walked inside together, Maya caught sight of their reflection. In the kitchen window, two people learning to tend not just plants, but each other, with patience and honesty, and the kind of care that deepens roots rather than forcing blooms. The garden would sleep through winter, but what they built together, trust watered with truth, love grounded in authentic partnership, would continue growing in any season.